Tina-Desiree Berg, and this week on Right Wing Insanity Report, I am joined by one of our favorite guests of the shows, Walker Bragman, who covers right-wing extremist dark money, does a great job of it. So welcome, Walker. I'm very excited to go through your new piece because it touches on some things we've talked about on the show before. Basically, this is about a fugitive billionaire that was wanted for crimes in China and then came to the United States, claimed he was a dissident, became very close friends with Steve Bannon, another right-wing extremist in the government, big supporter of Donald Trump, of course, but then has now been arrested by the Department of Justice for a lot of criminal charges involving money laundering, wire fraud, milking people out of their money, all kinds of things. So welcome, Walker, and let's get into your new piece.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to it.
All right, so Chinese dissidents secretly recruited right-wing writers to publish flattering articles. I think why this is important right off the bat is because this is an example of somebody sort of having enough money in the billionaire class to astroturf not only pieces about themselves, but also political causes that they believe in, and recruiting members of the media to be, more or less useful idiots for them to do that. So tell us a little bit about the background on how you got some of this information before we get into it.
So I have to be a little cagey about that. I have a source, or how to, inside of Guo's network, and that's really all I can tell you is that through this source came by original documents, and that's how this article came to be.
Okay, so somebody inside Guo's network, who's the individual we're talking about, leaked you some documents. I guess every now and then things are bridges too far. I've had actually ex-Proud Boys leak me stuff, so I get it. Sometimes they're like, hey, not sure I want to be a part of this. Let me talk to the media. All right, let's take a look at the piece. Operatives representing right-wing Chinese billionaire Guo Wingyao, who was charged in March for orchestrating a vast financial fraud scheme, have been secretly recruiting prominent conservatives, including the head of the New York Young Republicans Club, to write opinion pieces on his behalf in order to bolster his image as a dissident, according to an investigation by Important Context and Opt Out Media Foundation. Many of these pieces were published in high-traffic right-wing outlets, like Gateway Pundit, I know, was one, several others. Once a powerful businessman, Guo has been a prominent critic of the Chinese Communist Party since fleeing his home country in 2014 after being accused of bribery, rape, kidnapping, and other charges. Guo's vocal advocacy has earned him a devoted following among the Chinese diaspora and made him a favorite of the American right as it postures against the rising Eastern power. Guo is perhaps best known as a longtime business partner of Steve Bannon, a right-wing extremist and former top aide to Donald Trump, with whom Guo has launched multiple ventures purportedly aimed at overthrowing the Chinese Communist Party. I do want to talk about that for a second. You get into this in a little bit in a moment, but Steve Monticelli and I were looking at some of the last CPAC, and there was this sort of astroturfing campaign that was going on related to this new Chinese, Chinese Foundation, whatever, this shadow sort of government that they want to put in place to overturn the Communist Party.
New Federal State of China.
That's right. New Federal State of China. I mean, there was a lot of videos. There was a lot of fake accounts on Twitter that were getting, boosted up, retweeting each other, liking each other's tweets, with all videos from CPAC, all about so if you literally typed in CPAC to search on Twitter during that period of time, all you saw was just a ton of these accounts talking about this, and it was really hard to find other content. So clearly there's a big push behind here. I think, let me ask you this. I think part of the reason why is Guo needs to be still seen as a Chinese dissident in order to maybe escape what he's facing from our Department of Justice right now. So maybe he thinks that helps him in a personal way, and not just his personal beef against the Communist Party, but also, for justice here in the United States.
Well, I think what's essential to recognize is that his image as a dissident has helped fuel the fraud scheme that he is accused of. So his image as a dissident was as central to building a support base for these various projects and ventures that he has launched and raised money for, including cryptocurrency. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think also being able to point, now that he is indicted on these charges, being able to say, this is political persecution, I think is really important. That's why we have seen the effort continue despite his arrest.
Right.
So I think those are two things that are important to note.
All right, that makes sense to me, which also kind of relates to the content that he was getting published. Guo's collaboration with established right-wing figures in the United States was aimed at manipulating the media to bolster his credibility. A source with knowledge of the Guo's network operations, speaking on the condition of anonymity to protect their livelihood, outlined to important context opt-out how representatives working on behalf of Guo would recruit the writers to place their names on opinion pieces that spoke glowingly of him and his efforts while criticizing his adversaries. Walker, also, I want to add that this is something that we see commonly also with think tanks, right? They try to kind of astroturf different various publications with pieces that kind of push whatever their clients' narratives is, right? So I work for American Enterprise Institute. I want to publish something that is, very neocon, foreign policy related. So I'll have somebody at AEI pitch, all these various outlets to let me write a piece on behalf of whoever my military industrial clients are. So we've seen this playbook before, and it can be effective. I do think that this one is a little bit more extreme because now he's more or less, him or his ghostwriter are writing these pieces and then having them, carte blanche, fully just printed as is.
So it's important to note also that there is a disconnect between Guo and these articles, that there are several intermediary steps between Guo and these articles. It's not like Guo himself is sitting there typing these up. These are articles that are being written on his behalf, and then passed along down a chain, and eventually ending up at these outlets.
Okay.
So we do know that this is sort of, this is common practice for consultants and political operatives and whatnot to place stories at various publications. At the same time, this is a fugitive Chinese national who's accused of running this $1 billion fraud scheme. So it gets a little questionable.
It's beyond questionable. And let me point out too, so folks understand this. The fraud scheme charges are coming from not just the Chinese government, also from our Department of Justice here in the United States. So don't get anything in your head that this is just persecution from the Chinese government. It's not. Clearly, the Department of Justice would not have arrested and brought testimony to a grand jury and get him indicted if there wasn't some very serious stuff going on. I think one of the charges was also money laundering, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, he's accused of taking money from these ventures that he starts and raised money for, and spending it on himself and buying expensive Ferraris, mattresses or what in a car.
Mattresses was on the list. Ferrari was on the list.
It's pretty out, and he's not the only one implicated in this in the fraud scheme, but so he has sort of ingratiated himself on the right, and I think that what my piece really does is show just how deeply entrenched he has become on the right. Like, one of the writers of these articles, one of the big name conservatives, is Gavin Wax, who's the president of the New York Young Republicans Club. I mean, that is a pretty high up person to be writing these articles on behalf of this guy.
I agree. When Steve Bannon was arrested, he was on his yacht,
right.
Just so people can make this connection. I think he was living, my understanding is Steve Bannon was not only living on the yacht, but taking $1 million in a year in salary for being a consultant. So obviously there's a very close tie there. He's been on War Room, which is Steve Bannon's podcast, a few times as well. All right.
And Bannon is a co-founder of New Federal State of China.
Right. Steve Bannon.
When they launched it together, they were on Guo's yacht with the Statue of Liberty in the background.
Which is just wild, right? They lack self-awareness, Walker. There's no self-awareness. All right. Important contacts opt-out obtained and reviewed documentation showing that writers involved in the arrangement included New York Young Republican Club President Gavin Wax, who you just mentioned, Bannon's War Room co-host Natalie Winters, podcaster Kelly Walker, and former Trump aide and congressional candidate Carolyn Levitt. None of the four writers nor any of their outlets, Newsmax, Gateway Pundit, Town Hall, The Washington Times, and Headline USA, responded to our request for comment. No surprise there. We saw communications related to placing pieces about Guo in conservative media outlets, as well as 2 drafts bylined by Wax and Winters that were subsequently published on conservative sites. The source, who had direct knowledge of the arrangement, helped identify published articles they said had originated from the network. So, more or less, it sounds like to me that when you read these articles in any of these publications, you wouldn't have necessarily recognized them as being sourced from this.
So only some of them were marked as sponsored content. Like there was
I see. Okay.
And even then, the sponsors of the content were mysterious entities like New Noah, which we know.
New Noah.
Yeah, New Noah, which we know very little about, or
right.
Token Team. One article that was bylined by Wax appeared in Newsmax. It was not listed as sponsored content, but the headline of that article and its contents matched a prompt that we had seen that we knew originated from Guo's network. So it appears in Newsmax in 1 month, and then the next month it appears in Gateway Pundit as, surprise, surprise, sponsored content by New Noah. So yeah,
and it has the same title, if I recall from looking at.
Yeah, it's the same.
Word for word. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are pretty confident that when you read the stuff from these outlets, it does raise questions as to the origins of the content. Now, again, this is fairly standard practice for consultants, which is really, I think, a problem for journalism more broadly.
I agree. I think it's unethical. I think it should not be happening at all. I don't think this would have happened 40, 50 years ago. This is, it's many bridges too far. I think it's incredible. I don't think political consultants should be doing it. I don't think think tanks should be doing it. And I certainly don't think wealthy billionaires should be doing it. But it is kind of common practice at this point. And it's also why many Americans don't trust the media.
Right. It is a real problem. The fact that this article that originated from Guo's network ran in Newsmax without any kind of acknowledgement that it was, it had been curated at the very least, or to use the right wing term, groomed. Is sort of alarming.
It is alarming.
Are getting content that they don't know where it's coming from.
They don't know where it's coming from. They don't have any commitment to veracity with it. They don't know how it was sourced. It's it's just one more layer of our misinformation onion, and I think it's very problematic. So Guo and Bannon co-founded multiple groups allegedly aimed at toppling the Chinese Communist Party, included the Rule of Law Society and the Rule of Law Foundation in 2018. Then in August 2020, the pair launched a group called the New Federal State of China, which they framed as a government in waiting, ready to overthrow the Communist Party and establish a new democratic state. The pair live-streamed the launch from Guo's yacht in New York's Hudson River with the Statue of Liberty in the background, as you mentioned. In March of this year, Guo was arrested in his Manhattan apartment and indicted on 12 criminal counts, including wire fraud, security fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. The charges stem from his alleged role in what the federal prosecutor called a complex conspiracy to defraud thousands of his online followers out of $1 billion. Guo also faces a parallel civil case from the Securities and Exchange Commission related to the fraud scheme. So from reading that Department of Justice press release, it's also my understanding that he had done an unregistered stock listing and was selling private, quote unquote, private stock to these individuals, which obviously was supposed to go to fund these businesses, but he was using to buy personal items.
Yeah. So it's pretty gross, and I would recommend to viewers going through and looking at the charges, and then keep in mind that this effort to paint him as this persecuted freedom fighter is ongoing.
Is ongoing, yeah.
And they're alleging like that the DOJ has it in for him, that this is a big conspiracy against him. And actually, one of the voices to come out recently, and this was pointed out in Mother Jones, is George Santos, who himself faces fraud charges. He's now defending Guo, saying that this is a big conspiracy against him from the DOJ and that the DOJ is corrupt, which, gosh, it's super convenient.
Didn't he almost go as far to say that the Department of Justice wanted to protect the Communist Party in China, which makes zero sense at all?
Yeah, he's flailing, I think, right now.
He's flailing. I mean, the United States government is now all of a sudden pro-communism? Like, who's buying this?
Well, that's the thing. There are definitely... I don't know how much this has... you don't see... I haven't seen at least this take off among the broader right in the same way that, the COVID misinformation narratives that I've reported on have caught on and spread widely. But it is percolating out there. Like this stuff is
it's definitely
out there,
percolating.
And New Federal State of China was a sponsor of CPAC this year. So the ties are real.
The ties are real. The money is real. Like, I knew somebody was like paying for all that astroturfing for the CPAC thing, and I couldn't figure out where the money was coming from. I mean, maybe it should have been obvious to me, but I was like, when I read this, I was like, aha, yes.
It's very rare though to get like a real glimpse into these types of operations, right? Like, being able to identify like, oh, this person is placing stories in this publication and this publication, and like it's rare to have that kind of insight. So I think in that sense, like, while the story is basically political intermediaries running a PR blitz for this billionaire, standard practice, what we see all the time, we're really getting a look at how the sausage is made. And I think that's what's important about this piece.
Right. I agree. All right, I want to jump down to the conservative voices part of the article. So the conservative writers engaged by Guo's network have deep connections to the far right and Bannon. Through his role at the New York Young Republicans Club, Wax has hobnobbed with white nationalists and right-wing politicians. The attendees at the group's annual gala in December, at which Wax spoke, included Bannon, Donald Trump, Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Peter and Lydia Brimlow of the white nationalist hate group VDARE. So VDARE, this Pete Brimlow is 100% a white nationalist, hardcore. That's just absolutely not an exaggeration there. One of the Guo network drafts reviewed by important contacts opt-out named Wax as the author. In a communique between people working with the pro-Guo network, Newsmax was mentioned as a possible outlet for Wax's work. Another document listed prompts for stories to be put out by the network. The first item offers a possible headline: exposed DOJ employee, attorney secretly met with Chinese ambassador to sell out America. The prompt goes on to say that the article should be about a meeting between a former Justice Department lawyer and a Chinese diplomat. On February 23rd, 2003, well after the prompts were distributed, a piece authored by Gavin Wax appeared in Newsmax with the headline, wait for it, DOJ employed attorney secretly met with Chinese ambassador. The article claimed the Justice Department employees' contacts were in the service of a Communist Party campaign against Guo. The aim is to put Guo behind bars so he can no longer effectively agitate against communist totalitarianism. I mean, Walker, this literally makes no sense. Our government, the United States government, has spent years doing the opposite. Why all of a sudden would they be on board with any communist party in any country? I mean, this just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, but it does if you don't think about it. No, I think that,
I mean, you know what I'm talking about. From COINTELPRO forward, we've had nothing but an FBI, a Department of Justice, CIA, whoever, like trying to get agitation out there against communist parties, both in Cuba and China, North Korea, wherever, right? In South America, Central America. We've devoted so many resources in the United States to defeating communism, right? You know, quote
but you
unquote.
have to consider the audience, the intended audience for this, folks who believe that Donald Trump is secretly waging war on a cabal of
right,
Jewish pedophile.
Fair, and they also believe that the entire Democratic Party is communist. So there's that, which makes also no sense.
So it's not too difficult to see how they would see that this might sell.
That's fair. All right. So the following month, the wax piece was republished in Gateway Pundit, and I went and looked at it, and you're right. It's a mysterious entity called New Noah. It is verbatim, the same headline, same piece. A second draft reviewed by Important Contacts opt-out was bylined by Winters, who normally works as the lead investigative reporter at National Pulse, though there is no evidence the site published content from Guo's network. A right-wing outfit headed by Rahim Kassam, a longtime Bannon ally, National Pulse bills itself as an independent investigative news outlet, LOL. Can I just put a little LOL in there? Winters is also a co-host and executive editor of Bannon Show War Room. The draft we saw was eventually published in Headline USA, a far-right online media outlet. Winters was interviewed in March by the New Federal State of China, the group founded by Guo and Bannon. The interview was filmed at the annual conference, CPAC conference. Guo's group was a partnering sponsor of the event. Winters praised the group for doing such a wonderful job at kind of interlinking the threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses not just to the people of China, but to us here in the United States. I want to talk about this for a second. Guo shared the interview on his social media platform, Getter, which he is heavily invested in and, according to recent reports, likely controls. So this was a story broke by Mother Jones on April 6, 2023. So this was just recently. I did not know about his connection to Getter. This was fresh information for me. Getter is very much a right-wing social media at like Gab, like True Social, right? They're trying to cater to the unwoke folks out there that got kicked off Twitter. It makes sense now. Jason Miller was the CEO, but maybe he was just a front guy for Guo. But some other Jones reported that they got copies of these WhatsApp messages of this conversation that happened. That makes it pretty clear that Guo definitely has some sort of professional connection to the site. So just to read some of that, Wang responded by explaining that he was following a schedule approved by Getter CEO Jason Miller. Miller's team was quite satisfied with tests on the feature, but felt Guo's schedule was too fast. Wang said, bad move. So that's the actual copy of the message. What they were discussing was a new video feature that Getter was going to have come out because they wanted to compete with Twitter having longer video. It didn't come out on time. Guo responded to the guy, do you obey Jason or me? I obey you. Wang wrote back with the whole group still copied on the exchange. I broke your trust. We are very ashamed. We will deliver as soon as possible. So little tidbit there that he's related to Getter. But again, so owning a social media platform is also one way a billionaire, if they want to astroturf, if they want to get out, specific types of information, that's one way to do it. We've seen it with True Social with Trump, and I'm going to be honest, we're seeing it right now with Elon Musk and Twitter.
Yep. Absolutely. Elon Musk, having his own content treated differently at Twitter than other people's.
Oh, clearly.
Like,
yeah.
In the the algorithm, like no changes to the algorithm if it hurts Musk's, tweets, even if it works, even if it's good for both Democrats and Republicans, like if it hurts Musk. Right. And Matt Binder has done a great job reporting on all of this.
The algorithm is entirely broken at this point. You get I don't even log into Twitter barely at this point. I can't stand it. I log in and I get a bunch of paid Nazi accounts in my feed that half of them I have blocked at this point, and they're still showing up.
You just got to keep blocking the blue.
They keep, but after you block him, he still forces you to see them. It's absolutely so. I mean, you can't tell me that's not by design. But a lot of these accounts, when I say neo-Nazi accounts, I do mean literal Nazi accounts.
Literal neo-Nazis, yeah.
White Lives Matter account is now verified. One of the Ram guys' account is now verified. I mean, it's
nothing
what
would
is he
please
doing?
me more than watching Twitter implode and just and vanish.
Yeah, it's a problem. So, I mean, this is, again, billionaires trying to, in any of the, I think Guo would say, as Elon Musk has, that he is, an advocate of free speech. Neither of them are. They don't want free speech. They want to control speech. There is a difference. I hope people see that clearly now. It's just,
free speech, but not freedom of reach.
Right.
I'd like to know what Nazi accounts he's suppressing. Because it seems to me that if you look at the right wing, far right accounts and right wing operatives and disinformation agents and whatnot, Musk is consistently replying to them, retweeting them.
Yeah. He actually
he
had the audacity to. Oh yeah, he was doing a whole George Soros anti-Semitic thing the other day.
Yeah, he boosts Jay Bhattacharya, one of the worst serial misinformers to emerge out of the COVID pandemic. A right-wing operative at the Hoover Institution,
right?
A guy who's completely enmeshed with right-wing politicians and the Trump world and DeSantis world, and this is a guy that Musk routinely elevates and treats as a credible medical expert. It's really, I mean, this it's pretty incredible. And he subscribes to libs of TikTok and he answers to cat it's pathetic. It's
cat turd. Oh God.
he's just Musk. Sorry, and it's just he's very frustrating because it's sort of like a 14-year-old kid on a something awful forum or on an online game.
It's very cringe. I agree.
Somebody who would grief you in an online video game back in the mid-aughts.
Yeah.
He's
like 8chan reply guy. I
Yeah, somebody who thought the pinnacle of internet culture was Icon has cheeseburger.
Exactly. It's embarrassing.
Anyway, he's 50. He's 50. Dude, you're 50. You're a middle-aged man.
Did you see, we digress into another conversation here, but I wanted to mention, if folks didn't see this, he was still trying to deny the emerald mine that his father owned, this was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and his dad actually reply guide him, saying dude, what are you talking about? The emerald mine is real. It's how I paid for your education. You often would see emeralds in the house. It was kind of wild. I was like, huh. Okay. So,
nothing
why
would
does
more than watching Elon Musk's businesses unionize or go bankrupt?
Yeah.
If Twitter going bankrupt would be hilarious. Although Twitter is no longer Twitter, it's wrapped into his ex company or whatever.
Yeah, yes, that's just Twitter's dying a slow and painful death. I think when Blue Sky actually opens up to everybody, it will be a mass exodus.
I like Blue Sky, but it needs to have a web app and
it needs to have video capability.
It needs to have video capability, and I need to start getting more than one or two likes every three tweets or skeets, I guess.
Well, there's just not enough people on there right now.
There's just not enough people.
Eventually,
and not enough people who like me. That's my biggest problem. That's the big problem with it. It's just that we need more people who like me on Blue Sky.
Yes, it's about you.
It is. Clearly, it's all. Yes. That's the big issue.
That's the big
No, it
issue.
needs to open up to the
So
public,
funny.
and it needs to.
Yeah,
It
I
needs
agree.
to. It needs to have video capability and direct messaging. And once it has those things,
It'll be great. I'm waiting for that to happen. Hopefully they
me
get
too.
that soon. All right.
Are you on
Back to
Blue
the
Sky?
article. Not yet, no. I will be.
Okay, good.
As soon as those two things happen. I need
Good.
I need the video. I can't, you know what I mean?
I've promised one invite code when I get it to somebody already. But if
Yeah, you get one.
after that,
Yeah.
I'll hit you with an invite code.
Alrighty then. Okay, days after publication, New Federal State of China interviewed Winters about her piece. The article was republished on the website IssueWire, along with the media contact for Freedom Talk, the podcast of Kelly Walker, who the network source said was involved in the writing arrangement. Kelly Walker also works with Steve Bannon at War Room. Am I wrong on that or right?
Would not surprise me.
Okay.
We may have missed that. If we missed that connection, good on you for pointing that out.
Or maybe I've just seen her on there. I'm not sure.
No,
Okay.
Kelly Walker is Kelly John Walker. So he's a podcaster. Also, he's on sponsored content that New Noah sponsored. Like he's
That
the
might
author
be his. Okay, that might be his
on
group
several
then of some
pieces
sort.
that have been sponsored in Gateway Pundit by New Noah and Token Team.
Okay. All right. So, a senior writer for the Epoch Times, and we can talk about that in a second, Walker was arrested in April 2021 for attempting to zip tie two Tucson school officials because of their COVID-19 isolation rules. In October 2022, he was found guilty of misdemeanor charges related to the incident and sentenced to jail and probation and ordered to pay restitution. So Epoch Times, let's talk about this for a second. I think it does matter. It relates to this. This is a publication founded by basically a Chinese cult that is in New York, upstate New York. They have a bunch of land up there. You've seen their dancers. They try to get people into the cult by doing these dance shows. But they are, Epoch Times is a big supporter of anti-vax information, big supporter of Donald Trump, big supporter of anti-communist party stuff. So it's not a shock that they would be involved in this.
Yeah, they absolutely, I first encountered them because of my COVID reporting. They are a frequent purveyor of misinformation related to the vaccines and COVID, and so yeah, I not a credible source, not a credible outlet,
Not a credible source. No,
didn't really surprise me to see that one of the people working for them was also willing to, buy into this PR blitz for a fugitive indicted Chinese billionaire.
Right. Not a dissident. So we're almost getting to the end of the article. What points would you say are important that we haven't really hit on yet?
Well, it's interesting, so Kelly Walker's name appears in one of the prompts, which is supposed to, one of the articles they wanted written was about how the First Amendment is under attack, and Kelly Walker, an article that he had written for the Washington Times, got taken down after lawyers for one of the subjects of that article had reached out. So he's implicated through the prompts document that we have, and so too was Carolyn Levitt, who almost won a congressional seat in New Hampshire this past in the midterms. Levitt also wrote an article based on the prompts that we have. So similar to Gavin Wax, the language is pretty close to identical.
Right.
And yeah. It's just,
it's obvious that it's
an interesting glimpse, I think, into how PR is done in Washington, right, and the kinds of sort of mercenary types who are willing to participate in that.
For money, yeah, it's a giant grift. The unfortunate reality, though, is it does sway opinion, and they know it does. That's why they do it, obviously. When they invest the money into this, they know that they're getting a return on that. But the unfortunate outcome of that is many people in this country are being led down, these very extremist rabbit holes where they believe things that are not true. They trust these sites because, part of it, I think, Walker, is that if you have a little inclination in a certain direction, a little bias in a certain direction, and you read something that sort of substantiates that a little bit, it makes you feel better about feeling that bias, right? So you're like, oh, look, here's this media site. They're kind of like, telling me what I already think is slightly true. And then they start, getting fed, more extreme versions of that same sort of context. That's how you get led down that pipeline, the red pilling pipeline. And
absolutely.
It's getting to a place where we have a lot of extremism now. So, and a lot of these folks, once they get sucked in, it's really hard to reason with them. It's really hard to talk to them. I don't know how you kind of pull them out of that, but it's a problem.
Well, this is why I do what I do, to try to expose that. It's why important context is called important context, to sort of let you know who is saying what, who's behind what messaging. This is my bread and butter. This is what I do, because people shouldn't, you shouldn't be able to mislead people. If it's relevant to your message. Who you are is relevant to your message. Now you get pushback from people who are like, no, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. It's the veracity of what I say. And sure, if you're telling, truthfulness of your message absolutely matters, but it also is relevant, why you might be taking that position.
Yeah, I agree. It is relevant. All right. So Walker, I wanted to discuss another story that Democracy Now! Has published yesterday that is unbelievable. Former Senator Doug Jones was on the show discussing this with them, but Tuberville has basically verbally defended having white nationalists in our military structure. Colin, can we play this video?
We are losing in the military so fast our readiness in terms of recruitment. And why? I can tell you why. Because the Democrats are attacking our military, saying we need to get out the white extremists, the white nationalists, people that don't believe in our agenda as Joe Biden agenda. They're destroying it.
You mentioned the Biden administration trying to prevent white nationalists from being in the military. Do you believe they should allow white nationalists in the military?
Well, they call them that. I call them Americans.
I call them Americans. In an attempt to walk back his comments, Senator Tuberville told a reporter at NBC, quote, "I look at a white nationalist as a Trump Republican." Listen carefully.
I look at a white nationalist as a Trump Republican. That's what we're called all the time, a mega person. That's what I'm just...
Do you agree with that assumption?
I agree that we should not be characterizing Trump supporters as white nationalists.
Senator Chuck Schumer blasted Tuberville's remarks, describing them as utterly revolting. The controversy comes as President Biden told graduates at Howard University Saturday white supremacy is a poison and the, quote, most dangerous terrorist threat in the country. Meanwhile, on Sunday, members of the white supremacist group Patriot Front marched along the National Mall in Washington, D.C., carrying shields and battle drums.
Okay, so Walker, I am kind of shocked by this. Maybe I shouldn't be. We've been headed in this direction for a long time. But, I mean, wow. Just wow. He's basically soft-shoeing neo-Nazism at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
There's no bottom. It's despicable. Like, no, we absolutely should not, have white nationalists in our military. That is a major problem, because while they're in the military, that's one thing, but they also leave the military. There's also a major problem of white nationalist groups and militia groups recruiting veterans.
That's right. They want that skill set, so it's part and parcel of the course.
And that's
it's very dangerous.
Super dangerous. I mean, it's just, we have to root out white nationalists, and in our government. We need to absolutely do a better job of making sure that the people who are serving the public aren't also serving these paramilitary organizations within the U.S. and groups that are training to commit violence against American citizens.
There's
Biden,
two. I agree. There's two. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Biden said that white supremacy is the greatest terror threat this country faces. Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely, it is. The white nationalists, white supremacists are increasingly emboldened, and they're violent. The violence is I think it's a slow escalation, but it's really frightening what we're seeing. And I think regular people need to be ready to our government has to, first of all, our greatest tool in this fight is government. And we cannot allow government to be hijacked by these individuals, these dangerous individuals. And I would also point out that the conservative movement's agenda, and this is broader than just the Republican Party. I'm talking about the conservative movement, which has been bankrolled by wealthy billionaire families for years. Their agenda is
extreme libertarians, I would say.
Yeah, it's
Peter
to
Thiel,
gut the
Koch
federal
brothers.
government to a point where it is
100%.
incapable of dealing
100%.
with these domestic threats, and that is extraordinarily dangerous, because it opens our government up to infiltration and dismantlement, and it's a full frontal assault on everything that makes this country.
It's a full frontal assault on democracy. I agree. So I think you have two groups here, and I think you're touching on this, and it's correct. You have people like the Koch brothers, Peter Thiel. These are anarcho-capitalists, extreme libertarians. They want to be able to extract more and more wealth, and the way they do that is from having a destabilized democracy or a very small government. How they achieve that is through the use of what I'm going to call useful idiots, right? Whether it was the Tea Party, which is, I think, sort of in many ways the birthplace for this model. That was Koch-funded money that birthed this supposed grassroots movement, right?
I would call the John Birch Society the birthplace.
All right. Okay, that's fair. Let's throw back a little further.
That's where Koch learned it. And by the way, they're not, people, this conversation also often gets, there's often, I think, an artificial divide. Like, oh, is it a class war thing? Like, are they just using these issues as distractions? No, I think fundamentally at their core, I think Charles Koch firmly believes the social conservative nonsense that he promotes.
Yeah, I do too.
He also just happens to care about money. He's also just money oriented. But he's also, he was a part of the John Birch Society. That should tell you everything. His father was part of the John Birch Society. It almost feels, and I've said this before, it almost feels as though the conservative movement is a modern outcropping of the Confederacy, the defeated Confederacy.
Yeah.
There's, they lost the South lost the war, but reorganized, and sort of had its waged a counter revolution starting in the 1970s or 60s really, and we're still paying for that. And obviously, you can trace the roots of that counter revolution to the 1920s, but I think or to Hoover and his lily white Republican Party, but we're for at least some of our modern history, this has not been ascendant, and now we're seeing sort of the an ascendant, or
It's the inevitable outcome of it, really, isn't it?
yeah, this is
All of
this
this
is the end
it's
point.
reactionary. All of this has been reactionary for so many decades now. It just keeps getting, more extreme.
It keeps getting
But
more
I
extreme.
I think we were sort of there, almost in mid 90s. I think Timothy McVeigh is a really prime example of that. At the time, when he blew up the building in Oklahoma, he was tagged as being an anti-government extremist, right? But in reality, he was a neo-Nazi. And at that time, I don't think a lot of the media and other people knew how to kind of deal with that sort of idea, right? It was sort of like, is he just anti-government? Well, he is, but that's by virtue of the fact that he is a neo-Nazi. He was at Waco handing out copies of the Turner Diaries, which is basically a blueprint for the race war that ends with what they call Day of the Rope, right? Where they get to hang everybody that they think is a degenerate. That means black people, brown people, gay people, Jewish people, whatever. So, and now here we are in 2023. The Turner Diaries is still being passed around. It's still kind of a Bible for a lot of these guys. I think they're becoming much more outspoken now again because Trump lifted off that Band-Aid. I don't think that's a crazy statement. And getting back to what Tuberville's saying, why this matters. I mean, obviously this is offensive for black folks that are serving in our military. He's basically making it an uncomfortable, unsafe environment for them. There's no two ways about that. But I do think you're correct. A lot of these neo-Nazi anti-government groups want to recruit from the military because they want these guys that are trained because, again, they're looking to start the race war, right? This is like the ultimate in accelerationist. Let's blow up, destabilize the government, start the race war. Then we get to recreate our white nationalist country the way we see it, right? So that's, in their deluded minds, they think that that's actually a viable thing that might happen, which is why you're seeing them out there right now, doing the banner drops, doing the flyering, creating more video content, creating more podcasts that they, share all over Telegram and whatnot, Gab, So all of these things are sort of working together. Now, is this ever going to be the majority of the country? No, I don't think so. But you don't need a majority of the country to create, systems of violence or to, do acts of domestic terrorism. And I think that's a real inevitable outcome. Can you imagine
just checkpoints on the interstate where these neo-Nazi types, armed neo-Nazi types are stopping cars and looking for migrants? Can you imagine that?
I literally can. I can't imagine that. The unfortunate thing is, if you had asked me that question, Walker, 10 years ago, I would be like, no, I can't imagine that. Now, I actually can. That's the scary thing.
Yeah, I think that I think that there's such infiltration in law enforcement, and there's been such gutting of our federal government, and the takeover of the judiciary is just a catastrophe. I mean, there's no backstop to the Democratic backsliding now. This is facilitated by a right-wing, reactionary, radical, activist court that is throwing precedent, rule of law, and stare decisis out the window. This court does not care. It is in there to do one thing, and that is pass the far right radical agenda, rabid agenda.
Turn the country into theocracy, really.
Empower Republicans. This is they are trying to establish minority rule in this country. It cannot sustain. Demographic shifts absolutely are against the GOP right now. So the response.
100%. I think they know that. I think that's what they're reacting to, right? They know that.
Absolutely. There's, it's the fear of loss of social status, and it's fueled by, widespread economic precarity that makes the message of we have a person to blame, we have a group to blame. That makes that stuff appealing to people, to the people who are in the majority group. It's not, you're not going to, and maybe some who are not. There are Hispanic white nationalists that we're seeing.
Okay, but so hang on, let's talk about that for a second. That's always been the case. I think a lot of folks in the United States, per se, they don't tend to view Hispanic as being part of a white culture, right? But when in reality, any Hispanic individual that identifies as European or coming from Spain.
Yep.
Many of those individuals are incredibly racist. They see the indigenous populations of Spanish colonized countries, right? They see them as being inferior. So there has always been a caste system within the Hispanic community. And so, like, when you see things like Hispanic neo-Nazi, you shouldn't think to yourself, like, that's counterintuitive or crazy. I mean,
Right.
I get that reaction. I do get it. I'm like,
No,
that's
not what I'm saying.
But,
I'm just saying that, like,
no, I'm not saying you. I'm explaining that for people that might think that. Just putting that out there. So it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I just mean that it's, you know, you don't see a lot of appeal to these sorts of scapegoat messaging among the groups that are being scapegoated.
Right, right, true.
So, but yeah, I think the U.S. is in an extremely precarious position. We really, really, really need a strong democratic government. Yeah. We need an executive willing to wield power, to say, you know, to take it back from a radical court. We need the Congress. You know, this isn't. I'm not even saying like I have very low expectations of the Democratic Party, and a big part of the reason that we are in this mess is because the Democrats have been so unwilling to wield power in the way that Republicans have.
I agree.
But we desperately need the opposition to this, the mainstream majority opposition to this far right, slow moving coup, I guess, against our democratic system. Yeah. We need that majority to fight back.
We do.
You know, we need an FDR, and we're stuck with Biden.
FDR.
I mean, that's
I know it's really a sad state of affairs. We need a government
that's going to restore people's faith in our system and show them that it can work. I mean, look, and this is why I have spent a lot of time harping on the pandemic, and this is part of the reason that in the early stages of that pandemic, in the very early part, we saw a historic expansion of our safety net that we hadn't seen in decades, and it reduced poverty meaningfully in this country. The pandemic unemployment assistance, the expanded child tax credit, the eviction moratorium, the debt repayment freeze, the expansions of Medicare and Medicaid, the expansion of CHIP benefits. I mean, we saw how government can work for people and how it can impact people directly in their pocketbooks. And as a direct result of that, the labor movement has exploded. I mean, we've seen, you know, labor with more leverage than it's had.
More teeth than ever, yeah.
In my entire lifetime. I mean, people realized what their work was worth, what their lives were worth. And I think that is critical. And of course, you know, there's that saying, never let a crisis go to waste. That's exactly what the Democrats have done. They have and seemingly deliberately, you know, the urgency of normal, gets broadcast everywhere. You have the Biden administration saying we have to reopen schools immediately, get people back to work. Schumer admitting if we don't reopen schools, it's going to hurt the economy. It's not going to hurt the economy if you pass relief, if you help people, if you give money to people, if you know, like put relief directly in people's pockets. And that's how you fight fascism. I mean, that's not the only way you fight fascism, but it's part of it.
But I think it's definitely part of it. It's critical. It is absolutely critical that we deal with income inequality.
That fascists and demagogues feed off of is essential. Yes. Now, I'm not saying I want to
I agree with you.
Clear that white supremacy will go away, that these Trumpers will switch sides if you just give them monetary money. I'm not saying that.
No, but their extremism would definitely subside quite a bit. The reason income inequality always drives fascism. I don't know why people think that that's a crazy idea if anybody actually does. I think most people get that.
I think it's uncertainty.
It's not going to eliminate, it's uncertainty too, but it won't eliminate racism, but it will do a lot to keep the extremism at bay. I think, yes. I think you're right.
People need the right feeds off of problems. And right now, what we're seeing is the political right, the far right. Everyone is like, this economy is, the economy sucks. It's hard for people. They're struggling. And it's a direct result of 4 decades of neoliberal governance that the right has prescribed since the 1970s, really, the rise of the neoliberal era. Republicans have loved these economic policies, but they're not popular.
Of course they do.
And we're living the consequences of them. So what we're seeing is the right sort of has a grab bag of talking points now that they're throwing out to sort of just get people on board with them, because they can't sell this economic platform. So you have to, you have to sell we're seeing tough on crime make a resurgence. We're seeing the anti-black stuff. We're seeing anti-immigration, anti-immigrant stuff. We're seeing a lot of anti-trans hate. Like this is their new cause, to rally around.
Celebrate. Celebratory celebrate.
A minority group that makes up less than 1% of the U.S. population. It's really, really troubling. I think you have to have a multi-pronged approach. But I definitely think that making sure that people have faith in our system is essential to preserving that system. People have to see that government works for them. That's what FDR understood when he fought, when fascism rose in the 1930s in the U.S. FDR fundamentally understood that if you keep people believing that American democracy can work, it won't fall to demagoguery and these kinds of appeals. Yes, the hate will still be there. FDR made a lot of compromises with the South, with the New Deal, that I don't think he should have made. But he definitely understood that keeping people invested in America was essential.
Yes, public trust.
We don't.
I agree, Walker. Public trust is so important. Without public trust, these institutions, these government institutions, do not function anymore. And I also think the far right understands that truth as well, which is why they work so hard to destabilize these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is why, like, the right is sort of an alliance between capital interests who want lower taxes and to establish generational wealth that lasts forever. Far right, like white supremacists who don't want government to do things like pass the Civil Rights Act or Voting Rights Act. Right. They want to be free to have government discriminate against their undesirables. And persecute undesirables. And then you have, Christian nationalists who don't want government saying that Christianity can't be taught in public schools.
They want literally their religion to be the law of the land at this point. Exactly.
So there's a confluence of coming together of these groups that all want government out of the way. And they're okay with what we're seeing today, right? Like, we live in a country where there are mass shootings every day, where there's historic levels of inequality, where there's, widespread poverty and suffering, and they're kind of okay with that. And ascendant fascism. All of these groups are okay with that.
Yes, they absolutely are, because they know how to. Yeah, because they think they can benefit from it. You're not wrong on that.
And that's, so. Mm-hmm. So when we often hear this argument on the left, like between is it cultural issues or is it economic issues? It's both. It's inseparable. They're
inseparable. Yeah. And the way that classism and racism are also inseparable. All of these things are kind of married together.
Yep. And I would say, and there's a very, very, very small, I think, but misguided segment of the left that thinks we can work with these people because they hate the establishment too. And we can convince them with our economic appeals. You're not going to.
You're not going to. You're going to end up on the losing end on that one. And that's a ridiculous,
all you're going to end up doing
thought.
Is empowering them.
You're correct. It's naive to believe that, honestly. But you're right. Some people do. But Walker, here's the thing. I don't even think these people are on the left. They might say that they are. I don't really think that theoretically they are. I think these are folks that are simply, their religion, their politics is simply being anti-establishment, period. And wherever that takes them is where they go. And at some point, because their anti-establishment beliefs aren't really moored to any real principle, they end up supporting these incredibly untenable positions. That's, par and par for the course, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Walker,
Absolutely.
where can people follow your work? Give me all your Twitters, your opt-out app, all these things, so people can find you.
I'm not going to give you my Twitter. I'm going to say follow me on Blue Sky.
Yeah, there you go. Blue Sky.
If you have it, follow me on Blue Sky. And if you don't have it, when you get it, when it opens up, absolutely follow me on Blue Sky. So subscribe to important context, I guess, would be my message. I do this kind of reporting to illuminate sort of who is behind what messaging and help you sort of decode the national conversation. And I think that that's important. I also co-founded a nonprofit called the Opt-Out Media Foundation. We've got some big stuff planned for the future. It's a tax-exempt nonprofit. If you donate to us, it's a tax write-off, so that's a benefit. We have a news app that elevates independent, reliable media. Status Coup is in our network of outlets. Help me continue this reporting. That's what.
Yes, we will.
Please.
We will send people your way, definitely. Walker, I always appreciate you coming on and talking about connections of the dark money, right-wing extremism, because they're definitely there. So I want to close the show today.
Your reporting too. I mean, you get down and dirty with these people, like these far right types. I don't know how you do. Your mentions have got to be like a cesspit.
They are. They are much worse on Twitter now than they ever have been. I will say that. And in fact, so I want to leave the show today. I want to end the show today actually with something a little bit more positive, Walker. I was able to go down to the RuPaul Dragcon festival that happened this past weekend. For folks that don't know who RuPaul is, he is the guy that is the host on Drag Race. Very entertaining, funny show. Obviously, where drag queens compete. So he has this Dragcon that he does every year. So I went down there, and of course, the right-wing extremists showed up to protest this. Luckily, it was a very small group. There was some street preachers there who, were spewing, obviously, religious rhetoric that was just also very hateful. There were some other folks there from a group called Babies Lives Matter that, they say that they'd be fine with drag queens if they weren't inviting children to their shows. Somehow I don't know that that's the case. Anyway, but the good news is that they were kept to a low roar. Security didn't allow them onto the premises at all. A handful of them that did get on were escorted off. So the drag queens, for the most part, decided to use this as, as another way to perform some shows. So I want to leave you guys with this video. I talked with a couple in there. You'll see also, like, Walker, there were straight guys dressed in drag. Like, this was... So the fact that these guys constantly want to say this is about sexualization is ridiculous to me. Nothing about drag is sexual, right? This is, like, entertainment. It's costumes. It's, humor. It's good stuff. Anyway, so
who doesn't
want to leave
love
everybody
a good
with
drag
that.
show? Like, what the hell is wrong with these people? Like,
I don't know.
God,
it's become a thing.
They just want the next generation to grow up as repressed and and angry as they are. And you know what? Like, fuck off.
I'm going to leave it at that.
My name is Caroline Wong. I'm with BAM, By Any Means Necessary, and we are out here today to defend the RuPaul's Dragcon. We have the right to express ourselves in every single way we want to, and we are going to fight for that right, and we are going to shut down people who try to keep that right from us. We're determined to build a national LGBT+ movement because we have to fight, and we have to fight hard against the legislation in the South, against the attacks that are happening in the North. We have to have a national movement and build national actions as well as actions in our own area. We're determined to build our Don't Walk On By campaign, which is to stop attacks on immigrants, on gay people, lesbians, transgender, everybody who is oppressed in this society, and we are determined to fight and win. We think we have to build a movement, which means we have to keep coming out. One action a year is not enough. We have to build momentum. We have to have demands. We have to see if we win those demands, what it took to win them, and then keep moving forward. So that's it. If you want to come out to the drag convention and protest with us, please do. We'll be here all day. Thank you.
All right, we have you framed up with the taller dicks.
Yes.
So what is win a dick?
So if you follow my Instagram page, which is Eat Kinky Waffles, all my new followers, I'm gonna pick a winner and I will mail you it. So, but a lot of people are buying them today and then having the queen sign them inside.
I'm disappointed, but they'll still have a dick cup.
Yeah. Dick has to go.
You can't be disappointed.
No, always tend to the balls.
Right? There we go. 1, 2, 3. Cute.
Oh, but you guys could be in the front too.
Yeah, sure, why not? I was like, oh.
Thank you.
Okay, tell me about your hands.
Well, the wrapped around me. I got these on Amazon and then I just like made the nails and jewelry and everything. So. Oh, and your shoes. Look at your shoes. These are your shoes. Oh my
Yeah. How you doing? English.
Like a bunch of clowns. So much makeup on, you look like a bunch of clowns. We got a bunch of pedophiles here. A bunch of pedophiles disguised as Barbie dolls. Time for you to repent. You're an abomination. You're an abomination. You're wicked. You're filled with lust. Oh, Jesus said it's better for you to tie a milestone around your neck and throw yourself in the sea than to live. The wrath of God is being unveiled upon all unrighteousness. The wrath of God is abiding upon the children of disobedience. The wrath of God is upon you, and the wrath of God will be unleashed on the day of judgment because of your perversion. Oh, you're enabling pedophiles on this earth. You're spreading like AIDS. You spread your filth like AIDS. You look just as filthy on the outside as your sin looks on the inside. You're hideous. Your sin makes your heart hardened. Your sin makes your heart perverted, defiled. You're unclean. You represent everything unclean. You're like trash. You're like a bunch of animals. You're a bunch of animals. No wonder. You are a man. It's time for you to start acting like it. If you were born a man, you will always be a man. You're God. Time for you to please God instead of being a rebel, instead of being a child of the devil. All I see here is a bunch of children of the devil. You've watched so much porn. You've watched so much porn. Abomination. Time for you to take that smile off your face and to proclaim the name that is above every name. There's only one name given under heaven.
Okay, let's go behind.
That's crazy.
Terrorizing the next generation. Oh, time for you to sober up. Time for you to realize your wickedness and abandon your wickedness. Oh, you look ugly, idiot. You're a pedophile in disguise. You're a man. Time to dress like a man. Cross-dressing is an abomination. Time for men to dress like men, women to dress like women. Cross-dressing is an abomination. Time for you to repent. Willing to punish the abominations of the land. God is willing to punish the abominations of the land. Time to turn away from your sins. Time for representation of the Jesus you follow.
Love your neighbor
Yes,
as yourself.
not the good representation of the Jesus you follow. Just a clown.
The disciples
Just
asked Jesus, what is the
clown.
greatest commandment?
Turn away
Jesus
from your
said,
sins.
love the Lord your
This
God
is
with
the
all your
love
heart,
of God that
all
He
your
sent
might,
His
and all your
messengers to
strength.
tell you to
And the
testify
second is this,
about the
love
truth,
your neighbor
to testify
with
about
all
the
your
truth.
heart.
And this is
As
the
yourself,
truth.
there is
Unless
no
you
greater
repent, you will
commandment
not see
than
life,
these.
but
Love your
eternal
neighbor
death and
as yourself.
condemnation. You are
Love your
condemned
neighbor
already, for
as
you have
yourself.
not believed the word of God.
Love your
Jesus
neighbor
did not
as
come
yourself.
to save.
Love your
Jesus
neighbor
did not
as
come to
yourself.
judge, though.
Inside the convention center. Don't listen to the hate. God loves you. All the gods love you. Love yourself, and the truth reveals itself. Accept your flaws, your beauty, and the things you want to change. They don't love themselves. No. But here's the thing.
What is this outfit? It's fabulous.
It's Deadpool mashed up with drag, mashed up with Wednesday Addams. It's chaos and I love it.
Because of sexual immorality. Y'all better work! People like you, perverted, vile